This darkness suits me. This time of year when the world has grown dark and I wrap myself in my cloak, I sit in my chair and I spin. Oh, this darkness suits me. I do not have to wander the world then. When I think of her, when I think of how it started, what I always think is that I should have known. I should have known. I should have recognized it. I was young once too, but like so many mothers, I wanted to see my daughter as a girl. I didn't want to see who she was becoming. I imagine he began courting her with a spray of brightly colored leaves of orange and gold and scarlet left at the edge of the field. I imagine her face as she saw them. And I imagine that he courted her with a necklace of bone, and when she put it on, the bone was even whiter than her pale, pale skin. I didn't want to know. I only knew when I heard a terrific scream. And I knew it was my daughter calling out to me, and I ran as fast as I could. I ran across the field, and there were her handmaids huddled off to the side, and a great scar in the ground, and they told me that Persephone had been pulled underground by Hades himself. I fell to the ground, and I scrabbled at it, my hands tearing at the dirt, my fingers ripping, blood mixed in with the soil. But no matter how hard I tried to dig, how deep I dug, I could not find her. My heart shattered. The handmaids were huddled far away, looking at me in terror. But I turned my back on them and I began to walk. My gown was soiled. My hair was wild, and I did not care. My daughter had been stolen from me. I began to wander the earth. I didn't know what to do. What do you do when your child is taken from you? What do you do? And finally, I found myself walking up Mount Olympus. What do you do but ask the gods? I walked to Zeus, and there he was, sitting on his throne, Zeus! Zeus in his power and his glory, Zeus who would not meet my eyes as I walked towards him, my gown stained. Certainly no image to present to him. I didn't care. Brother, I said, brother, please return my daughter to me. He shifted in his seat a little. Brother, I said, brother, please, I need my daughter. He looked away. I fell to my knees in front of him and said, my lord, brother, please. He stood up. He looked down at me. My brother Hades wanted your daughter for wife. She didn't object terrifically. I have nothing else to say. And he walked away. His robe brushed against me. It was so cold, I swear it burned. I don't know how long I stayed there. I know that I gathered myself up and I stumbled my way back down the mountain and I began to wander. Thinking perhaps if I looked, I would find a way down there. Perhaps I could do something. There must be something I could do to get my daughter back. And I looked. I don't remember much of this time. My sister Hecate, she tells me that I walked singing lullabies. She tells me that I carried a rag doll and held it to my breast as if I were feeding it. My sister Hecate, she tells me that my gown turned to rags on my body. She tells me that people fled when they saw me coming. I remember none of this. What I remember is this. I remember waking up and realizing that my head was cradled on someone's lap, and I was heard singing, and that someone was stroking my hair and my cheek, the way you stroke a child's hair and cheek when they're sick with fever. I opened my eyes, and I sat up, and there was a woman before me, sitting on the ground, a gentle smile on her face, but the singing was coming from the place that makes her most a woman, a gentle voice coming from there. I looked at her, and she said, tell me. No one had ever asked before. And so I told her of Persephone when she was a girl. I told her of Persephone's bright smile, of her laughter, of the way that she would chase her handmaids around and they would chase her. I told her of Persephone's love for green, growing things. I told her of my daughter. And I told her of the scar in the earth, and of Zeus, and of what I had lost. And I wept. And after a time, when there were no tears left in me, she took my hands and she stood me up. She cupped my cheeks. She pushed my hair away from my face. She undid the ties that held the rags still onto my body, and it fell around my feet. She bathed me. She rubbed my skin with oils. She combed my hair over and over and over again. And then she smiled. And then in that funny, laughing, burbly voice, she said to me, "Don't you know? You have all the power." And I said, "What do you mean? I have no power. My daughter's been stolen." "Don't you know? Think. What is it that Zeus loves best? Ha! He loves power. Think. What is it that Zeus loves best? Ha! He loves women. What is it that Zeus loves best?" And I thought of Zeus. I thought of that which made his eyes grow bright, what had always made his eyes grow bright. And it was the hearts of men. It was the hearts of men singing his song, praising him, that which gave him power. And she said, "You supply men with what they need to live." She smiled and walked away. I began to walk the earth back towards my home, and with every step I took, the grasses turned brown. I held out my arms, and wheat, all of the fields began to wither and die. The green shoots that had just begun to spring up from the earth sunk back in. And as I walked, all around me, the earth turned bleak. I got to my home. I sat in my chair. I began to spin, and I waited. It didn't take long. The people began to starve, and the people called to Zeus, asking him to save them, but he could do nothing. He could not bring the harvest that was mine to bring. And so finally Zeus came to me in my home, and he stood in front of me. "Sister," he said, "sister, what is this foolishness? Go to your work." I wouldn't look at him. "Sister," he said, "sister, surely you miss the ways of man." I shifted in my chair just a little. "Sister," he said, falling to his knees in front of me, "sister, you must bring them the harvest. Without the harvest, they will not praise me." I looked at him. I stood up. "Give me back my daughter." And I walked away. I heard his voice. A moment later, I heard him saying, "Fine, very well, I will send Hermes to talk to Hades, but you must fetch her yourself. Now please, give them what they need." I walked to the field, to the dry, brown field that had that scar in the earth. And when I came there, the earth opened in front of me, and I walked down to the underworld, and there he was, Hades, sitting on his throne, stern. Beside him, my daughter, my Persephone. And when I looked at her, I saw her as I never had seen her before. The glint of the bone necklace against the fine bones of her throat. The knowing smile. My daughter, this woman now, beside her husband, her hand resting lightly on his. "Daughter, I have come to take you home." "Mother," she said, "I have missed you so much." And she turned and looked at her husband. He looked so sad. And as she looked at him, I could see in her face all of the affection and desire that I had known when I was young. "Daughter," I said, "please come home with me." Hades sat up and he looked at me and he said, very well, to celebrate your daughter's return to the earth, please partake of this feast. Daughter, no, I said, you must not. But it was too late, because she rose and looked at her husband and smiled, and the pomegranate stained her lips. And then she turned and walked back to the world above with me. Now she is here, half of the year, here with me half of the year. And as I walk the world, my feet turn the grass green. The fields flourish. I raise my hands, and the shoots burst forth from the earth. And half the year she goes below. And for that time I sit in my house. Let them make of it what they will. I sit and I spin and I wait.